Hi, I'm Amy Shannon, and this is another reading from my book, Reminiscences of Ballstown, Echoes and Whispers of Forgotten Legacies. And this time I am going to be talking about the Gordon family. Um, Gordon may sound familiar. We have in Ballston Spa, Gordon Creek, which was named after General James Gordon. And the school, the elementary school of Gordon Creek, was named after the creek that was named after James Gordon. And James Gordon um, he was a very um, prominent figure in the Revolutionary War. He married um, Mary Ball Gordon, who was the offspring of Eliaphilet Ball. Um, Eliaphilet is the man, the reverend, who bought the land that became Ballstown. And he had brought his family with him and his congregation. Um, Gordon had a great respect for Eliaphilet and vice versa. Mary idolized her father very much so, and always wanted to be the what was expected of her. She had great faith in her father and their religion. Um, Mary and James, they had two children, Melinda and Alexander. Unfortunately, Alexander passed away when he was young. So I am just going to do a quick, brief reading of just to introduce you to James and his family. General James Gordon was a patriarch, soldier, father, husband, and community leader. He was a pioneer whose name is associated with the most stirring events of past times and with the most important civil positions, town, county, state, and national. In the catalog of public officials, his name appears repeatedly. He was from County Antrim, Ireland, when a boy of 17 or 18 went back and returned. And he um, finally settled in Ballstown. And let me see, here we go. Okay. The Gordon House was a little southwest of uh, his present house. He was actively in the service in the Revolutionary War and promoted through successive grades to the rank of general. In 1780, he was taken prisoner by the Tories and brought to Canada. Um, James led families that made their home on Middle Line Road in Ballstown, that road is still there. And he owned 1,000 acres along Middle Line Road. And then he brought in his friends and settlers, and they constructed mills and sawmills and grist mills. And he became a respected leader. Um, The Gordons did their best to preserve their family's legacy, and there is a document called Reminiscences of James Gordon, and he wrote this document, and later it showed up in possession of her husband's great grandson. Um, so it said in, let's see, General Gordon's obituary in the local paper said James General James Gordon, when the Revolutionary War commenced, he took an active and decided part in favor of our independence. At that trying time, the prowess of a soldier and the prudence of a civilian were united in him. To personal exertions as a partisan and counselor in common with others, he bore the fatigues, incidents, the revolution, and dangers of conflict with surprising fortitude. So worthy a patriot inspired public confidence, which he retained many years after the struggles he had experienced uh, ceased. He was honored with a seat in Congress under the new Constitution and a seat in the Senate of this state and by the free suffrage of the people. Mary was a devoted mother, a member of the church, an ally of her father's. Mary and her daughter Melinda, along with several servants, survived the fire of Ballstown, which is when the British and Iroquois banded together and either killed or kidnapped several men during the Revolutionary War. A friend of James, Isaac Stowe, was killed during the raid. Mary took care of her daughter and kept their household running and maintained her faith while she waited for word about her husband. He was held prisoner in Canada along with his friends and his last slave, but eventually returned when the war ended. Mary supported her husband with all his endeavors, especially when he was making their home into a thriving community. There were rises in land values, old highways being rebuilt or fixed, and adding more roads. Mary Ball Gordon died at the age of 50. Belinda Gordon was a cherished daughter of James and Mary, and she married William Beekman Verplank in 1798. They had three children, Mary Ann, William Gordon, and Philip. After William's death, Melinda married Henry Waller, and they had six children: Elizabeth, Melinda, Elizabeth II, Henry, Joseph, William, Mary, and James. Alexander, experience of life, his experience of life was mild and fleeting, and he only lived to be 9 years old. Even though he did not reach maturity, Alexander's memory was cherished. His father was buried close to him, a demonstration of everlasting affection and recollection. Together, their graves mark a hushed corner of family history where presence and absence are held side by side. If you are familiar with James Gordon, you may not be familiar with everything that he has done. And many times people they know that he was in the Revolutionary War. They know that he was uh, obviously a general, but he was also taken prisoner and he escaped. And after the war, he made his way home. But he was a family man. He uh, very much loved his children. Um, he was devastated at the loss of Alexander. And after his wife, Mary, passed away and James was getting older, he wanted to spend his last years with his daughter, Melinda. So that shows how close knit their family was. And of course, they were an extension of the Ball family. And Mary brought them together, and James and Elia Follett were very good friends, and they served together in different capacities, but within the Revolutionary War. And Elia Follett was one that was determined to keep Ballstown safe, and they even built the Fort of Ballston, which protected civilians and also um, housed military. So I just want to shout out to the Gordon family. Um, it's not just a creek, it was something different. Um, and it was named after him because it was started on his land. And it runs into several other creeks. But he was one of those men that um, he had power, but he knew what was important and he risked his life to save others. Uh, he went to warn his friend Isaac, but Isaac was on his way to warn James, and Isaac was killed by an Iroquois. Um, the British and the Iroquois Indians banded together, but they were necessarily on the same side. The Iroquois, they were hell bent on, excuse my language, they were determined to kill as many white men as they possibly could. And sometimes they killed a slave, and other times they took some of the slaves with them, the male slaves. And of course, this is a time that, slavery was legal. But the Gordons, according to the records and everything that I have found, though they owned slaves, they treated them humanely. So to me, I think that's an important distinction to make. Many notable men throughout history, notable families, have owned slaves, and even though um, it took 100 years or so to stop that, but not everybody treated their slaves well. But the Gordons are some people that deserve to be remembered, not just for James's accomplishments, but for him being a human being, a father, a husband, and also a friend and a devoted man to his community. So I want to again thank you for listening, and I will have more videos soon. So thank you again. This has been Amy Shannon.